Hello and welcome to the Anyone Can Play Guitar podcast,
which gives you, the listener, a series of hints and pointers on your journey as a musical artist,
providing you with interviews from those in the music industry, along with our own experiences.
Ben and James shine some light on the many pitfalls and opportunities that being a musician has to offer.
Last week I kicked off a two-parter with digital marketing entrepreneur Stacey Kehoe about marketing mistakes, having clear objectives and testing your market. This week I continue with Stacey where we get into the specifics of marketing content, covering the creation, scheduling, repurposing, hashtagging and then the importance of using analytics.
Welcome to episode 37 with me, Ben, and him,
James!
Oh, Lord! That has spiked. That was jazz hips and feet.
Feet?
Well, maybe thighs, because he went up. Well, that was tantalising. Should have saw it coming though, to be fair.
You asked for it.
I did ask for it. No one else asked for it, but
No, well, they got it anyway.
So here we are again, part 2.
Yes. We're still in the World Cup.
Yes. It's funny that. Yeah, so last week was a good introduction to the world of social media and internet presence, online presence, whatever you want to call it. This week you said something about the specifics. What did you mean about that?
Well, we're getting detailed. Talking about how you would go about using the various social media tools. Because I think in my mind, it's very easy to post something on Twitter or Instagram.
It's very easy.
It's very easy.
People have found out very much their detriment.
Yes, but it's somewhat harder to do it well. And by well, it's
How do you judge that?
In part 1, we've sort of talked about, well, what is your purpose? What's your goals? What's your objectives? So in that, you should have thought, right, well, what does success look like? What's a good outcome? So this goes into the more of the specifics of, right, well, here's some things to think about when you're actually doing said posts.
Yeah.
So,
it is one of your favourite topics in the world coming up right now.
Oh, yes. Well, we talk about analytics.
Analytics. Oh, you love analytics.
Data, Ben. It's all about data.
Well, you are technically correct. Trends, statistics, where's your audience coming from?
Wow.
All that sort of stuff. So
otherwise you're guessing.
That's right.
So let's get specific.
Oof.
With Stacey.
Get specific. I quite enjoyed that.
You've mentioned live things a few times there. And it sounded like you view as that live tends to trump all other forms of sort of postings. Is that fair?
I mean, I think it is. I think the audience loves to see, any audience loves to see live content. But as I mentioned, it's not always possible. You know, if you're on stage and performing or something, you know, it's not really that possible for you to do something live. Although, you know, you have seen people do it live on stage when they are sort of live streaming or whatever, which is great. But it's not always possible. I think I guess it's more about like, okay, I'm out and about and I'm in this place. You just want to post something quickly about it, or you know, you're showing a little bit of behind the scenes. I think that's where live content's really great because people want to see. They don't want to see a perfect account where you see, you know, beautiful graphics and you've got, you know, all that. They don't care about that kind of stuff, especially in this industry. It's all about, you know, they want to see the grit and what's going on behind the scenes and, you know, all that kind of sneaky stuff that's going on. Like people love that stuff, and I think that's where you can, you know, capitalize on engaging your audience and getting people really excited about it is capitalizing on that. But again, you know, if you're just remembering to record a couple of little video snippets or taking a few photos, I mean, if you post them an hour or two later than when it really happened, it's not the end of the world. You know, I think it's just about getting that consistency and posting and showing people, you know, it's about storytelling. You know, we know this now with, you've got, you know, Instagram stories, with Snapchat, you've got even Facebook have come out with stories now. People want to see what you're doing on a daily basis throughout your entire day. And it's really just about showing people what's happening. People are really curious about it. And, you know, I think all of us are guilty of sitting there just watching endless roll of stories, and it can be someone's food that they're eating or whatever it is. Some of it's really boring, but you sit there watching it. And it's because, you know, it's real. It's not this perfectly created piece of content, you know, it's the reality of what's actually happening. And I think people really relate to that. If you can really show off what's actually happening, and you know, for this musician, if they're busking on the street, great, show it. Where are they? Let's show a little bit of that live. If they're doing rehearsal at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you know, let's show off that and show what it takes to really kind of make it. You know, if it's meeting, I don't know, one of your idols in a pub or something on a, you know, Friday night, show that off. I think just showing people the reality of what it's like to, you know, to be you, or to be the band, you know, your band. I think that is what engages people, and kind of helps you to build that following and sort of, you know, more engagement on those social media accounts.
Yeah, no, that resonates totally. I think there's an element of when things are live and raw and not edited, there's potentially that vulnerability, or there's something that is just real that people can relate to, and it becomes more engaging, particularly for big artists as well. As the ability to say, oh yeah, they're just like me, you know, and it can be something as simple as a picture of food, you know. Everyone's human. Everyone eats.
Yeah.
It's that common ground. So,
yeah.
No.
Everyone eats a ham sandwich or whatever it is. Yeah, exactly. It's just that you're right. It's completely about being relatable. And I think no matter, you know, once people get to a certain level or a scale of fame or whatever it might be, it almost can feel a little unattainable. So I think sometimes when you can see that people are really grafting behind the scenes and what it really takes to do what you do, I think that gives people hope, and it gives you motivation, and it definitely helps to bond with that brand. So yeah, definitely important. There was another thing I was going to say with that actually as well, which was thinking, I guess, in terms of content creation, because I know there's a lot of questions that come up about, you know, how much time should be investing in creating content and things like that. And I'm a really big fan of repurposing.
Okay.
I feel like I'm talking about this a lot at the moment. We call it, at our agency, we have a methodology that we use, which is called the content waterfall. And essentially what it is we try to start usually with some kind of video content, because it's the easiest thing to repurpose. But let's, for example, say we used the example earlier of, you know, interviewing people, finding out a little bit more about their personal story or whatever it might be. So it's the artist, or it's the, you know, someone in the band or whoever. You're interviewing them, you record that on video. Obviously, that is going to be turned into maybe a little 1-minute video snippet that you can share, you know, on a YouTube account. You can share it on Instagram. You can share it on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you're choosing to post it. That same video content, you know, you could strip the audio off that and distribute it as a podcast. You could even, you know, take some of the interesting points that have come out of that interview question and translate that. So write it into, you know, a little short blog post or something like that you can post on a local blog or on medium.com or on your own website or whatever it is that you have. You could then take some of the key points from that interview and spurt them out as little tweets. So I think it's just thinking about, you know, you could start with one piece of content, but there's many ways that you can repurpose that across multiple platforms so that you're creating content for people to consume in all different ways. Because as you mentioned at the start of this interview, you don't know how people like to consume content until you've put it out there and seen what happens. So if I'm on the train on the way to work or something, then I'm more likely to be listening to something. Whereas, you know, maybe if I'm on a lunch break or something, I'm happy to watch a video or to read a blog post. You know, I'm the same person. I'm interested in you as a musician, but how I wish to consume content at different times in my day might depend on where I'm at and what I'm doing. So sometimes it's just taking, you know, you can take one piece of content and redistribute it, repurpose it in many different ways. And I think people forget about that sometimes. They think, oh, I've shot this video, chuck it up on Instagram and forget about it, when actually you could be repurposing that and really rinsing it for all it's worth, you know?
No, I love that. That totally speaks to the part of my personality that just loves efficiency. Right, I'm going to do something once, but I'm going to get these 6 different things out of it. Oh, I love that. No, I like that. I like that a lot. Right. Something else that you've mentioned that I also like a lot, and Ben will testify my love of sort of stats, and it was about analytics.
Analytics, you get into it, you geek out on that, do you?
Yeah, there's definitely the sad part of my personality which really loves some of that side of things. So from an analytics perspective, what could our musician do? What should they be looking out for in the numbers, in the stats, in the general analytics that they can get from some of these platforms?
I think it's really important to understand where your traffic is coming from. So I guess there's a couple of different types of analytics to look at. Obviously, there's analytics on the individual social media platforms where people will show you how people have engaged with the content, what sort of reach you've received, in terms of likes, shares, comments, the organic reach that you get from that sort of stuff. That's really important to kind of dig into to understand. That's going to help dictate, what sort of content was working, why did that piece outperform another piece. Actually, I assume people like to watch our videos, but actually it looks like our text posts seem to do better for some reason. Great, let's do more of those. So I think digging into the analytics allows you to understand how your audience is participating or engaging with your brand, and that can help dictate what's going to happen next and what you should do more of and what you should do less of. I think on top of that, if you're going as far as having a website, which actually I really encourage any kind of bands or musicians to have, even if it's just a landing page, I think it's really important to be able to push content, push people towards something that you own.
Yeah.
Something that I think there's a lot of fear actually in the industry with regards to social media, that you don't own that platform. So if obviously Google owns YouTube, if they decide to delete your YouTube account, what can you do about it?
Yeah.
If someone decides to delete your Instagram feed, what can you do about it? There's nothing. So I think, I'm a big advocate of obviously building a landing page and having a website, where your budget allows you to do so. And I think for that purpose, you want to try to be pushing traffic towards those websites too. So I think if you're digging in, I guess, to your question around analytics, what I like to be looking at with regards to even having Google Analytics on a website is where are my audience? Where are they coming from? Because if you're testing out across a lot of different social media platforms, you don't necessarily, people make an assumption all the time. They say, oh, I had a conversation with a client the other day about this where they said, I know that all of my sales come from Facebook. Although my Instagram is awesome and people engage with it a lot, I don't think anyone actually buys anything on Instagram. And then actually, when we kind of dug into the analytics of where the traffic was coming from to the website to make the purchases, it was Instagram. So I think a lot of times people make incorrect assumptions as to where, the engagement or the sales or, the downloads, whatever, are coming from. And you don't really know that until you look at the analytics. So it is important. I'm not a numbers person. I'm much more of a creative person. But certainly in my agency, we've got to have those people digging into the numbers, because that's what gives us data to work with, where we can say, actually, we should be doing more of this and less of that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, the bit that sort of fascinated me, certainly when we started doing the podcast, is that when we started looking into the analytics that we had available, I was amazed at the range of countries that people listen from. That's not something I would have ever thought. Without looking at that, I would have made the assumption that we have a lot of listeners in the UK where we're from, and potentially a few in the United States. But whilst they are still, two of our biggest demographics, there's people all over that I wouldn't have thought before, I'd ever looked into the data.
Yeah, I think it's really important, and especially if you're a musician or a band or something, you may have an audience somewhere in the world that you just didn't even know. So I think looking into that sort of thing is amazing. Imagine being able to go on a trip to a foreign country and perform in a city that you just didn't even know you had this crazy audience in. So, I think it is really important to dig into that and really understand, where people are coming from.
Absolutely. Okay, so having looked through your website, there was quite a few interesting blog articles that you've got up there, and one of them straight away caught my eye, which is something that a lot of musicians talk to us about, and it's, what hashtags should I use? And again, I can imagine the answer in some ways.
Yeah.
Which...
I think I talked about it in the blog. Like, it depends. No, that's not exactly what I said. I think well, with regards to hashtags, again, every platform is a little bit different. So, you've got to think a little bit about, is it Twitter, is it Facebook, is it LinkedIn, is it Instagram, is it Pinterest? Where are you posting content?
So what are those key differences then with regard to hashtags across the platforms?
It's about search. So if you think about where hashtags came from to begin with, they started on Twitter by accident. So people started using hashtags to sort of tag in, I guess, keywords that related to the content. And the way that Twitter started out was you had to search for a hashtag in order to be able to find that piece of content. Quickly, Twitter actually removed that functionality, and now you can search all content on Twitter. So even if it's not hashtag, you actually still can find the content on Twitter. So that's one thing to bear in mind, I guess, when you are tweeting, is to make sure that the hashtags you're using, they can be different from the keywords that you have in your actual post. Which is, again, very different from Instagram, where Instagram, you can only find the content if it is hashtagged with something that you were searching for. So I guess immediately there's two platforms that you do have to think very differently with regards to hashtags. Because if you don't use the right hashtags on Instagram, then people can't actually locate that content. So that, I guess that's on a very basic level. How you should implement them and how it should work depending on what you're trying to achieve. I guess it comes back to that objective. What is your objective? Is it that you do want visibility and engagement, or is it that you are trying to sell tickets to a show? Or coming back to thinking about what you actually want people to do, I think should dictate a little bit about what you want to do with those hashtags. I think in the blog post, I'm trying to remember, it was only last week I think we published it, but I got to remember. So I think, for example, it was specifically focused on Instagram. I think that blog post, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it was talking about you can really only use 30 hashtags on Twitter. They'll cap you. I guess one little workaround for that is you can add them into the comments so that you can keep adding more and more and more. But I always advise people to think about sort of dividing up. Say if you are focusing on 30 hashtags, divide them into thirds, and spend one part of it completely focused on visibility. So just describing what you physically see in that photo or that video. So it could be something like, as boring as hashtag stage, hashtag guitar, hashtag whatever, like the actual physical things that you see in that.
Yeah.
The second part of it is really thinking about your audience and what are they searching for? What kind of search terms would they be using? Because it's not necessarily your direct audience. You could be trying to get visibility from an audience that is, completely different and has never come across your content before, doesn't even know anything about you. So I think it's thinking about what people are looking for online. And then the third kind of, I guess, type of hashtags that we like to use a lot of is things that are related to you. So it's going to be, your band name or the name of the couple of the different band members. It could be the genre of music. It could be, the related content to your industry is the other bit that you want to focus on. So you could dig pretty, you can get really deep with this stuff, but on a basic level, that's where you want to begin. And I guess this comes back to that testing. You got to test out a lot of different things to find out what works for you. And then I think, James, as well, you said one of your little favorite things was using Hashtagify Me. There's quite a few different platforms out there, websites that you can visit.
Yeah.
Hashtagify Me is a great one that I like to look at. And you can just put in a keyword, and then you can look at, Instagram or Twitter. You choose whichever platform, and it's going to show you the other search terms that are common, or they're almost like synonyms of the search term that you put in there, which can open up some opportunity because you might not think, there's a specific hashtag that's related to what you do that loads of people are searching for. So it's quite an interesting tool.
Yeah, no, I found that really interesting. Again, we'll put links in the show notes to it, but yeah, it some of it was quite obvious. You'd think, yeah, well, obviously, if someone's searching on or using that type of hashtag, then yeah, obviously that one would be paired with it. But like you say, there was definitely a few that cropped up, which I was like, oh yeah, well, I hadn't really thought about that.
I haven't thought about it too much. No, yeah. Exactly. There's a few apps and things you can download as well for specific Hashtag Vibe Me is great because you can kind of look across multiple social media sites. You know, you can look at what Twitter does versus Instagram versus Facebook or whatever, but there's a couple of apps and things you can download too. I think one of them is just called Hashtags, and that shows you the most popular ones for particular sectors. So that's kind of great if you're posting from your mobile phone or like your iPhone or whatever, and you want to just quickly post content. You don't want to type out a bunch of different hashtags.
Yeah.
That app can be really great because you can just copy and paste, 30 hashtags at a time that are related to a particular subject. So, that can be a really nice little hack as well.
Oh, I like it. There was another bit in your blog post that I liked in the sense that I hadn't really thought about before, and it was looking for real niche sort of hashtags.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, that kind of comes down to, I guess, maybe the genre that I'm trying to think about it specifically for musicians. It might be the genre. It might be, you know how sometimes you come up with, people have little catchphrases or things that they say, or it could be the lyrics in a song or whatever. But that kind of stuff is really interesting to kind of niche in on because it means that you can sort of you potentially own that hashtag.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think that's something it's worth thinking about for sure.
Okay, so we've covered quite a bit on the various different sort of free social media type tools, I guess, that a band or an artist could typically do themselves. So I guess the next logical point, Stacey, is at what point would someone consider a proper paid for marketing campaign?
Well, you're gonna love this too. It depends. I'm sorry, I know that's so annoying. Well, there's a couple
but
of
right, yeah.
But it's true. It's true because I think the thing is, people can do really, really well with organic campaigns. You don't necessarily need. I guess there's two things of paid advertising that you might want to think about here. One is, I think the question you've asked is about an agency, outsourcing to an agency. I think, you really have to be quite an established brand and have the budgets to work with before you start looking at hiring a marketing agency. There's many different things you need to consider, I guess, when choosing to do that. The other side to it is, when do you decide that you should be doing some pay-per-click advertising, running Instagram ads or Facebook ads or Google ads or whatever it might be. And obviously you could do that yourself. You don't have to use an agency to do that. That's something that you can do yourself. Obviously I would suggest if you do choose to do that to learn a little bit about it yourself. You do want to get a little bit of training on it. Just, there's YouTube videos out there that can teach you the basics. There's plenty of platforms out there where you can learn this yourself. But the reason I say do a little, educate yourself is it can go badly.
Yeah.
Spend a lot of money on this kind of thing if you don't know what you're doing. And that's I get a lot of feedback about this where people are like, oh, Instagram ads and Facebook ads, they're so expensive. And I'm like, they're only expensive if you don't have a really clear objective and your targeting is bad. So I think, paid advertising, everything is shifting towards it. Gone are the days where you get amazing organic reach across social media platforms. They're all looking to make money from us.
Yeah.
So, you definitely, we've seen even just the last couple of months, a huge decrease in what we call organic reach for just posting content without paying for it to be boosted or advertised to a specific audience, which is unfortunate, but, it's all these social media platforms are businesses. They are looking to make money. So, and they've capitalized on it and they have a lot of data about people and their targeting is incredible. So you can understand why.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's more just, at what point do you decide that you should be paying for advertising? I'd say, the obvious one is when you've got the budget. When you've got the money to spend, I think you should, because it helps you. It really does help to build your reach. I think maybe leading up to the launch of an album or leading up to a really big gig where you're going to be selling tickets and you can work that advertising cost into the cost of the ticket or whatever it might be. That's when you want to look at it. It can be incredible for a couple of different reasons. It allows you, the targeting is so tight and so niche that you can really dig into and target exactly who you want to target. And I guess there's probably maybe 4 categories that I guess adverts run under in terms of the type of targeting that you can actually do. So, for example, the first one is based on somebody's interests. So you can reach specific audience by looking at what they have done online, so their activities, the skills they've listed, pages they like, users they follow, sort of who they've engaged with, which sort of other bands, pages they've maybe liked or commented on or shared. So you can do targeting into specific interests so that your ad only displays to those people who are more likely to be interested in obviously your music or your band or whatever it might be. The other one is behavioral targeting. So this is sort of based on people's purchase behaviors, websites they've visited, what sort of things they've clicked through on before. These social media platforms really build up a picture of how people, how they move around online and what they're looking at. So some of that behavioral targeting can offer great, you can target groups, apps, pages, other events people have attended. Some of that behavioral targeting can be really, really great. There's sort of, I guess what we call custom targeting, which is actually, if you've sold tickets to a gig in the past and you've actually got an email list of people that you've sold tickets to, you can actually upload that database to a social media platform and just retarget them so that they see the ads again, which can be great. Or if someone's subscribed to a newsletter or something that you've had on a website, you can use that list to retarget and kind of so you're only displaying these ads to people who have already genuinely shown interest in what you do.
Right.
So then that means, because pay-per-click advertising, and where people get concerned with this is you're paying every time somebody clicks on that post or that ad, So you don't want to go wasting that budget on somebody who's not really interested in buying your album, attending your gig or whatever it is. So that custom targeting is really good. And I think the fourth kind of area that you get into with paid ads is what we call lookalike targeting. This is kind of new over the last couple of years, but this is if you don't have an audience already, maybe you don't have that database of subscribers, or maybe you've never done a gig before, you're just quite fresh and new. Lookalike targeting is brilliant, because what that allows you to do is, tell the social media site, okay, these are the other bands that are similar to us. Here are their pages, and you just share the URL to the page with that social media site, and just say, I want you to create what we call a lookalike audience. And so then they'll just display the ad that you're running to people that have also been interested in those other pages. So you can go there's a lot of stuff we could get into here, but I think, as an overview, the targeting that's available in terms of how niche you can get is really detailed. So you can see why they're willing to, they want you to spend money, is because you can really, if you get the targeting right, it can work really well for you. It's just, getting to that point where that's, I guess, within your budget and you can actually afford to do it,
And that makes total sense why you hear some people saying, oh yeah, Facebook ads, waste of time, spent loads of money and didn't get anywhere, versus other people who say, absolutely brilliant. It's been amazing since I've started it, because you can imagine the people in the two different camps. One, you've got the group who are really clear on their objectives, what they want to do. They've done research from their audience, all the rest of it. And so they've shaped a really specific campaign and really drilled into the target audience, versus the other group who've probably just spent some money, quickly just added a few sort of demographics in and then expect some results.
Yeah, absolutely. I talk to those people all the time. I tried Facebook ads, tried Instagram ads, it didn't really work for me. And I'm like, oh, tell me a little bit about what you did. And of course, it's like, well, I posted this post and I boosted it. And I boosted it to who? And they're like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, that's exactly why that failed. It's work, it's not easy. It's not something that's you can chuck up in, an hour or so. Like, you really do have to dig into this, and put the work in, but the work is up front, you spend the time understanding the audience, understanding the targeting, getting your messaging right. You spend the time doing that up front, and then when it performs, you just let it run, and it's, you have to do a little tweaking, a little amending every now and again, but you can just let it run, and it's amazing when you get to that point where you're able to do that. So I'd say that's the key difference, is really just deciding, and again, it's coming back to, what is the objective? Are you on the right platform? Don't just run ads everywhere for the sake of running ads, let's get into your analytics, understand what has been performing well, where are people are engaging with you the most, and where are they most likely to, where's the most likely platform? Which platform is going to work for you? I think is really important to understand.
Okay, tied to all that, I've got another depends question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Go ahead.
So a lot of bands will be strapped for money, as you'd expect, and so they might say, well, I've only got 10, 20, 30 pounds to spare. Is it even worth me running a paid Facebook ad campaign, or is there only any point if I've got hundreds to spend? Is a typical sort of scenario that might come across. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say I totally understand that. It's here's the thing: the more you spend, the better reach you're going to get. So again, you're going to get what you pay for. So I'd say to answer that question, if your budget's that small, where it's 20 or 30 pounds, I think you're actually better off spending that on editing a video or something on the content creation side rather than the advertising side, because you won't get the results that you're looking for on social media with a budget that small. So I'd say, with that sort of thing, it's much better to spend it on, somebody producing content that's really going to engage people, because then you can just put the extra time and effort into doing it the organic way, using the hashtag strategies, whatever it might be, to get the reach. But at least the content that's created is juicy and good and people are excited about it, versus, putting £20 on an ad that, may not go very far.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. What sort of amounts do you think start to become more meaningful?
Yeah, I think it's such a tough question. I actually hate saying this because I feel like it's really difficult for a lot of, people starting out, musicians that are really grinding to try to get things going, even, small business owners that we work with too. They really do struggle. But I would say, I've worked with a few Facebook consultants, where they're trying to get us to spend a lot of money on it.
Yeah.
They will almost say to us, don't bother with less than £500 for a campaign. It's not, you just won't get the reach, you won't get the coverage. So that I'm giving a lot of clients that advice now. It really, if you don't have that budget to spend each month, it's really not worth it. And you're better off putting that money into the content creation side and trying to leverage relationships. There's plenty of ways that you can do outreach. There's bloggers and journalists that you can find all over Twitter that you can start building relationships with to try to get you some organic media coverage. Podcasts that you can engage with to try to get yourself some coverage. There's plenty of ways that you can do it for free. It just means spending the time on building those relationships and collaborating with other bands or other people within your network or the industry. I think that's where you're probably best investing your time and effort and small budgets for sure.
No, sounds good. Okay, I'm just conscious of time, Stacey. So one of the things that I mentioned before we got onto the interview that we cover in each episode is a good cause and a charity of the week. And I know that there's something that you're particularly keen on supporting, certainly through your business and in general. So if you want to just give a bit of a shout out and a plug for that.
Yeah, of course. So, I was telling you a little bit about, I'm really passionate about supporting the United Nations, the 2030 UN sustainability goals. There are basically 17 goals that have been established by the UN to try to work towards before 2030. And as a business, we've committed to goal number 10, which is reduced inequality. And so something that I've done, which I feel really passionate about, is I'm what we call a B1G1 member. So that's Business for Good. And what that does is allows us to, as we build as a business or as I grow as a speaker, author, and all the other bits that I'm doing, is to be able to make really small impact around the world to all these different projects that are helping to work towards the UN sustainability goals. And so that's something that I feel really excited about being a part of, and it's been really fantastic for our culture within the business, and also our clients love it too, because it means that we can all be making really small impacts every single month towards helping a really, really big ambitious goal, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely brilliant. I think that's a great cause to promote, and we'll put links in the show notes and plug that again from our side as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
No, it's been brilliant. Thank you very much for your time. And I'm sure our listeners will get a hell of a lot out of this. And so again, Stacey, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. See you soon.
Okay, James, how much did you enjoy
Ooh,
that analytic chat? Well, all the chat, but specifically, what were the things that you quite enjoyed talking about?
The thing is, right, just from speaking to Stacey, I could tell, well, she even said it herself, so, do you like that sort of stuff? Clearly, she does not. But
Which she said.
Yeah, but this is a common thing. Not many personality types have an interest in such stuff. So again, if you're in a band, you may or may not have someone in your band who likes that sort of stuff. Or if you're a solo artist and this completely turns you off, then it's right. What are you going to do? You know, like, because it's useful stuff. So you either just bite the bullet and spend time doing something that you really don't like, or you find someone who might help you out.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting point, and it's been going on for ages because a lot of tours go on analytics and statistics. Because why are you going to go to a certain area of the country when 20 people have bought your album? When you could use that petrol and use that money for a hotel in Edinburgh where 20,000 people have bought your album, for example. Yeah. It makes it's
well, that's it. Like I was saying, I mean, I wouldn't have thought that the third highest country for downloading our podcast over the last month, say, is from Japan, for example. That wouldn't have been something that I would have thought if I didn't have the data. Mm-hmm. So, konnichiwa.
I was not expecting that. Is that in your notes to say that? Or was that...
That's not. I just made that up.
No, you didn't make the word konnichiwa up. I can guarantee that. Okay. Getting back on track a little bit.
I was just saying hello to some listeners.
I know, but I wasn't expecting it in such a Japanese fashion. But I enjoyed it. I just hope our Japanese listeners did as well. Konnichiwa. So, one of the bits I enjoyed listening to, and again, before getting into analytics, was the behind-the-scenes element of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Stacey was talking about how live content is generally extremely popular.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's quite easy to do. Again, how many people do it, I don't know. Probably quite a lot these days. I just know in our social feeds, though, it's not that often that something pops up saying someone's live. So I don't know, maybe that's just our feed, but I can see why it's something's happening now. I'm gonna I have to watch it now because it's live type thing. So I get that's a thing.
But you're right. There's something's happening right now, and I kind of want to be there with that person.
Or I don't want to miss out, or whatever.
It could be mundane.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter though, because it's still a bit of content. It's still got. Even if like 20 people have tuned in to go, that's what that practice room looks like they keep talking about.
Well, the flip side, you could just be messing about or writing a new song, and people could tune in at the moment where you create whatever component part of a future #1 hit or anything. You don't know. Yeah. Or, like you say, it could be 30 seconds of utter garbage.
But it still shows that part of the process and how the work that, like Stacey said, the work that you do to get where you need to get to.
Yeah.
I tell you what, good at that on Instagram. The Foo Fighters really good at.
Well, they're one of the ones that often pops up with some live content.
Yeah, exactly. I know it's easy for them at the minute because they're on tour.
But the immaterial of where all you happen to be, right? Mm-hmm. It's still easy to press record on your phone.
Exactly. And part of that content as well, the repurposing of it as well.
I like that a lot.
I thought you might like that.
Yes.
Well, in fact, I knew you liked that because you said it in the video.
I did. I made that very clear.
You did.
Couldn't have been clearer.
It could not have been clearer. But again, like the video, the 30-second video, the 1-minute video, the 18-minute epic Arcade Fire video, it makes total sense.
Yeah, but taking software these days to just strip out the audio or get it transcribed or whatever, and then you can use different bits. I mean,
I do it on my phone for work.
Yeah, I mean, we probably don't do it the most efficient way currently, but we'll take quotes from guests from episodes and create something which then goes on to Instagram as content. So there's
Give someone a flavour of the
there's
interview.
a whole host of ways but I just really like that point of repurposing. I think there's loads of different ways to think about how you could get more out of what you've already done.
Yeah, I would agree. Right. Chronologically, next was analytics. Now, for the record, I do quite also like analytics, not as much as you, which is fine. So I am taking the mick a little bit. But the two of you were completely right. Tailoring marketing or tailoring your message. Where's your traffic coming from? Yeah, so I suppose we spoke about where do people sell their albums, other like.
I'm just trying to think about the different types of things that the data can tell you as well.
If you're in a band, yeah.
There's the obvious ones of, right, well, which countries are people from, or which social media sites have they come from to arrive in ours. But again, Stacey was saying, she recommends that every band, solo artist has their own website.
That's what I was going to say in the last episode, yes.
Even if it's just a landing page. But again, that in itself helps. You can
build your story.
Yeah, but you can get a load of analytics off that.
Build your content
to find which songs are they most listening to, which bit of content do they logically click on most of the time. There's all sorts of stuff, and then the more you can get into it. I mean, the thing that I think, just from getting as much data as possible in the future, if you look at podcasts right now, you can sort of tell how long people have been listening to, or what is the average time through the podcast when people typically tune out. So having that type of information about your songs, right? All right, well, we've got this 3 minutes 30 song. We think it's excellent, but people generally skip after about 10 seconds. It could be as soon as the singer kicks in. That's when most people just skip, or they stop listening, or whatever it might be. It's that type of real feedback, because often when you'll ask someone for feedback, they might sugarcoat it. It takes quite a while sometimes to find an honest, trusted voice.
You're trying to say the stats don't lie, James?
Stats do not lie, Ben.
Well, there's a very easy...
It's like the league table.
Yeah, that's right.
Doesn't lie.
There's a very easy way of doing that as well. If your music's on iTunes, for example, which songs are the most downloaded? So,
and that's part of it, but I think just having something that goes the next layer below that to know, what, because you might have had that song downloaded like the most times, but if people are only listening to the first 15 seconds and then they tune out, or they just skip, or then they delete it or whatever, then you could have. This is the other thing to be mindful of with analytics. Sometimes the data can lead you to the wrong conclusion.
So the data can lie, James.
Well, it's all about interpretation.
It's. But also, I've just thought when I said that, like, if you have a song that's only been downloaded 1% of the other songs, and you think let's not stop writing songs like that. That's the wrong thing to do, because it's your art at the end of the day. And unless you want to have a certain sound and go, right, I want to...
Well, it's trying to understand why that would be the case. I mean, it could be because you haven't promoted it as well as the other ones, like your whole tactics around what you did. That could be the bit that's wrong, rather than the song itself.
Exactly, yeah. Never discount a song if you like it. That's what I'd say. I don't know, you can be quite blinded by songs, can't you, if they've got a sentimental reason.
Yeah.
So, one other thing that I took, well, it's two other things kind of intertwined. They're the hashtags and the paying for advertising on social networks. So hashtags, I didn't even know. It was a nice little bit of history of the hashtag in there, which I wasn't aware of. But again, it's targeting your audience. Who are our audience? How will they find us? Our names, good start. The song name, maybe a good start. Stage, guitar.
Yeah, but I liked it the way she sort of grouped it, and so, right, some of your hashtags will just be the obvious things that people can see in the photo. This was Instagram specific then, but some of the things might be, core things about you, like your name and all the rest of it. And then another whole chunk of it could be things that are related that people might go to, and just thinking about what would people search for, because those who have never heard of you before aren't going to search for your band name because they've never heard of you.
That would be a shot in the dark.
It would be indeed.
But if you put indie band,
if they're searching for new music or whatever it might be, then
new music, good hashtag, James.
Well, not a bad one.
Not a bad one at all.
As it goes. And then getting on to the whole paid for bit. She was saying at least 500 quid needed for a Facebook campaign, and again she sort of caveated that to a point with the fact that that's from like Facebook reps and consultants who obviously want people to spend loads of money on those platforms, but it's still a big chunk of money for a lot of people who are starting out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that 500 quid could pay for a tour, couldn't it? Really, of petrol and hotel rooms and that.
But then it's thinking about what's most. If you go out on tour, but no one's expecting you, and you spend that 500 quid going out to play to no one, versus spending the 500 quid
and playing a gig
so it's all these things to think about. You can just how granular you can get, and just Stacey talking through the different ways in which you can, if you don't have your own following, how you can use the sort of followers or the audience of others that are similar to you or whatever it might be. There's definitely a balance as to whether using £500 as an example, if you've just got that and that's the total of the budget you have to do whatever, then you're not just going to spend it all on Facebook advertising. But if you had built up a bigger budget, then it could be one component part of things to pay on. But she was saying that the reach of organic or sort of free or organic posts is getting tougher and tougher as the big social behemoths tweak all of their algorithms to restrict how widely it goes, to force you down to pay. It's obviously the nature of where it's going, their businesses at the end of the day.
So the good cause of the week, B1G1.
Yeah, and the whole UN sustainability goals. There's a lot of them if you go on the website.
The UN, there will be a lot of them.
Yeah. So it's worth just 5 minutes of your time going on to we'll put links in the show notes, obviously, as we always do, but there's a whole host of things that
affecting different people.
Yeah, be surprised if you looked through them and didn't have at least a few that you thought, actually, that's a fair shout.
A fair shout.
Yeah, they're all pretty good, but yeah, I would say give it 5-10 minutes to look through and see what sort of stuff's going on. But it's not a bad site.
Not at all. Brilliant.
Up next week we have the band Windchop from the US of A, where we talk getting started in music, musicals, duos versus a band, and forging a partnership.
We've reached the end of this week's episode of Anyone Can Play Guitar podcast.
Big thank you for tuning in, and remember to stop by iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.
While you're there, it would be amazing if you could leave a rating and a review.
All the show notes can be found at www.acpgmusic.com, and if you want to get in touch,
email us your questions, any feedback and any suggestions to info@acpgmusic.com.
That's it for now. Keep supporting upcoming artists,
and we'll catch you next time.